Hello, this is Erin with the Joy in Pens and Paper, and I will acknowledge at the start I am a little late in filming this because I went back to work this week, and the times that I thought I would be able to sit down and get this filmed, I was in kind of mental recovery mode after long days of getting things settled for the year and all of those things. So I don't typically talk about these kinds of things in my 3 Inks videos, but just really quick, I work in public school. I am in a district position, so I work across multiple buildings and across grade levels, and I work with social emotional learners. So the start of the school year can be a little spicy, and we are in it. So hopefully people are hearing kind of happiness and joy in my voice and not fatigue and any type of upset or negativity, because I do actually really like my job. But it is still, despite how much I love it, it is still draining. So I am just home from work. I want to get this film before my bum hits the couch, and I am done for the day. And then I will hopefully get it uploaded very shortly. So, anywho, here we are. It is 3 Inks Thursday. I'm a huge fan of alliteration. We are on number 19 in this series, and with a 3 Inks, I pick 3 inks, swatch them on 3 different papers, and I use 3 different nib sizes to write with the inks so that we all can enjoy looking at the differences in the ink properties and how those come out based on the paper or the tools that we are using. So for this week's 3 inks, I'm continuing using the Life Bank paper, Clairefontaine Rhodia paper, and Tomoe River paper, which is within a Galen Leather Co. Everyday notebook, and it's 52 GSM. And the 3 nibs or pens that I will be using, I'm continuing with my TWSBI Go because that's the one pen in my collection that I have 3 different nib sizes in. So I have a fine, a medium, and a stub nib. For additional tools, I do also have a Kakimori brass nib pen that I will use to do a swatch of the ink, and I have a white t-shirt to absorb the moisture. I have a mason jar of water. And then I also have an Inkapet because I will be using a sample today. And the 3 inks are kind of a grayish blurple today. That's the vibe that I'm going for. So the first one is Robert Oster, Summer Storm. The next one is Diatramentis Document Ink Fog Gray. Now, I have not swatched this for a bit, and so I'm intrigued to see how the ink properties are. I want to say the last time I swatched it, there was a lot of feathering on the page, so I'm wondering if it might be time to get a new bottle. I do think I purchased this on Amazon, which means I didn't have control over the storage environment prior to it coming to my home. So it may have been stored in a too warm or too cool environment, or it may have been exposed to sunlight, not sure. So we're going to try that out. And then the last one is a sample that I got from Van Ness. It's by the brand Vinta, and the color is called Armada. So there we go. All right. So let's start it off with Robert Oster, Summer Storm. I do usually say this, but it's very rare for me to specifically order the inks by how I want to swatch them. I just grab and go. So that is, in fact, the case today. I like to do a very, I guess, asymmetrical, unplanned swatch area. I just want to get the ink on the page. I don't often use a blue when I ink up my fountain pens. This is one of my more favorite blues to use just because it has that grayish undertone. I'm not a big fan of gray. I did not put this under the page. What is happening? All right, we're just going to clip that in real quick. Just have a little guide. So with the fine nib, I'm going to write the brand, which is Robert Oster. And I am seeing what appears to be a little bit of the remainder of the last ink that I did a 3 inks. So apologies for that. And then the ink name is Summer Storm. And then with the stub nib, mostly because I don't know what else to write, but partly because I don't often write with a stub nib, so I don't think that my posturing or positioning of the nib on the page is conducive to using a stub nib. So I just do some lettering, just little A through G, upper and lower case. And then I store the nib down, or I lay the nib down on the white t-shirt in order to pull out as much moisture as possible in between swatching. All right, so there was some residue. I don't know if anyone saw that while I was talking about this ink, but there's a little bit of some filament on the bottom that I was shaking up. This is not a shimmer ink, but that's another reason why I'm wondering if this ink might need to be replaced. And even the way that it coats the Kakimori brass nib is different. And this color is much darker than what is in my Wearingeul swatch book. Not sure. We shall see. Let's get writing with these different nibs and let's see how the ink comes off of the nib. So De Atramentis. Well, that's not too bad. Not bad at all. So this is Document ink. It's a little juicy. And the color is Fog Gray. Oh, that should be an E. We're going to leave it though. And Document ink, if you're unaware, for De Atramentis, it is an archival ink. So once it's down, it is not going to be faded by sun or it also is resistant to water. I do want to quickly show you part of why I'm questioning this ink. I'm just going to flip through my swatch book real quick. It is this way. So this is the Wearingeul swatch book. I received this in a subscription box from Ink Flight. And I was looking at these two colors right here, which to me look very similar. There's some variations in kind of the way that the ink absorbed into the page, but the color is very similar. But you can see in my writing here where I label, there's a lot more feathering than the Diatramentus document ink right next to it. And it's similar to Noodler's Lexington Gray, Noodler's 54th, and Noodler's 54th, I have thrown that one out because when I last swatched that ink, it was not usable. So that's why I was intrigued with swatching it today. Now, I mean, we'll talk about it at the end, but looking at it on the bank paper is completely different from my eye than the Clairefontaine paper. And then the Tomoe River is kind of in between these two. That's really fascinating. This almost has a red sheen to it. Oh, wow. Okay. Let me cap this. And the last one is Vinta Armada. Now, this one, I was a little hesitant whether it really fit or not, if I'm being honest. So here's what it looks like on my swatch book. And this is the book that I use to choose which inks I'm going to swatch. And the reason that I grabbed it is because it has a little bit of the undertone of pink, like the Robert Oster Summer Storm, but the blue seems to be much more gray leaning than Summer Storm, which is almost leaning Blurple, and Document Ink, which seemed very close to Summer Storm. Not so much on these papers, though. Oh, interesting. And occasionally when you see these spots here, those are from my fingerprints. There are some people who are much more thoughtful and intentional in their swatching, where they might wear gloves or use blotter paper to avoid any fingerprints. I'm much less formal over here. I just like to have a good time with my pens and inks. Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. So starting with the fine. So this is Vinta. Now I have inked up one of my Vinta samples before, and I did find it to be a little on the dry side. But a little white lightning can go a long way. This is almost a tiny bit green. There's a lot of chromo shading in this one. I went through a whole chromo shading era where I was getting a lot of Sailor samples and was really enjoying that. I may have purchased this around that time. Oh, I might need to film YouTube videos a little bit more often when I come home from work. This is helping me to disconnect really nicely. Very fascinating. Okay, so these are mostly dry. Interestingly, the swatch on the Life Bank paper here of Fog Gray is still has a pretty wet section. And then there's a little bit of wetness here. Now, I never do this. I never flip over, but today I'm just interested. Little start of a bleed through right there, a little bit right there. All right. So let's talk about these colors. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. So if I were to have been more intentional and planned this out, I probably would have put swatched Vinta first and had it be Vinta Summer Storm and then Fog Gray. However, that is not how it played out, and that is okay. Let's talk about Summer Storm. So with the 3 swatches of Summer Storm, and I talk about all of this from my eye, and occasionally it may transfer or come through on the video. It may not. I apologize. But from my eye, my perspective, the bank paper is leaning a bit more blue versus Clairefontaine and even the Tomoe River have a little bit more of the purple coming through. I can almost see a little bit of the pinky pieces on the Clairefontaine paper that I was able to see on the swatches within, trying to get there really quick, the Wearingeul swatch book. So here I can see that little bit of pink, and I can see a little bit of pink here as well. So of these 3 papers, it's coming through more on the Clairefontaine. In terms of shading properties, I'm seeing a bit more shading on the bank paper, which is abnormal. In my experience, bank paper is not as beneficial of a paper to use for a highly shading ink, especially as compared to Tomoe River. Apologies if I'm stumbling over my words a bit. The ink seems to sit really nicely on the paper for both the bank and the Tomoe River, and the Clairefontaine, it's a little bit more streaky, which would seem to me like the paper's absorbing the ink a little bit more, which is where you're getting the being able to see the strokes of the tool that you're using. I think my favorite part of these swatches is this section right here, just because I really love my shade. And even this little nugget right here really brings me a lot of joy. Looking at Diatramentis Document Ink Fog Gray, as I've already stated, to me it's really fascinating how dark it is on the Life Bank paper. It's kind of more of a medium on the Tomoe River and the lighter on Clairefontaine. And this, if I were to look at these separately, I might think these are 3 different inks, which is really intriguing. This ink, the only paper showing any type of a shading in is the Clairefontaine. And then on the bank paper, there's that little bit of sheen. It's shiny. I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but that's really, really very interesting. For Vinta Armada, absolutely a chromo shading ink. And I think when I picked it out, while I was questioning the appropriateness of the fit within this grouping, I guess you can see that there's some, there's that pink coming through, but the pink coming through seemed very similar to Summer Storm and Fog Gray. So I didn't anticipate there being the chromo shading that there is. And for chromo shading, you're looking at multiple colors coming out in the shading of the ink. So right here in this corner, you can see it's got that little bit of pinky, but then it almost has this seafoam green outer edge to it. You get that same effect right here in this puddle and that same effect right here in this puddle. You also see it here, and you can also see it here and up here. So it's a very complex ink. It seems to have this almost lavender grayish base color, and then you have these pinks and seafoam green coming through. So it's really beautiful. I love that ink. In terms of the family that I was hoping to capture in this one, being that grayish blurple color, it's not a fit. It's not a fit. I can acknowledge that, but it's an exciting ink. It really is. That's a beautiful ink. I admittedly have had that ink in my collection for a while, but I have not prioritized inking it up. We're getting into a new month and I've got it on my desk. This might be making an appearance in my currently inked lineup very soon. I am currently thinking about what pen I might want to pair it with. And I've got the pens picked out right here. I kind of want to show them, but I'm not going to. I'm going to refrain because it is the 29th, and in 3 days, the currently inked video will be going up. So we can all wait, right? Anywho, here are the 3 inks Thursday, number 19, right here. I love doing these videos. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate your time, your attention. I appreciate that we have some similar interests, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.